Hello everybody. Good afternoon. Hello. I do have comments off. Today I am going to go through the transcripts for the New York case. Now they are cutting a tree down in my neighborhood. It's quite a ways away, but hopefully you can't hear it. So I will do my best. I do plan to just leave comments off so that I can make it through a lot. We have quite a bit of transcripts to get through, and I am determined to make it through our transcripts, everyone. So it's going to take multiple lives to do that, but that is my plan. Today, I'm going to start on day 7 of the New York case, and this is Mr. Pecker's direct testimony. Now, Mr. Pecker also had a cross examination as well, so that will be coming up later on. But I do want to make it through as much as I can. I will go for probably about an hour here, and then I will just, I think throughout the weekend, be coming back on and off to kind of get us back up to speed when it comes to the transcripts. I am really looking forward to the transcripts from yesterday and from today. That should be very interesting. So I'm trying to kind of catch up as best as I can here, everyone. So with that, it may take me a little bit for us to catch up fully, but it should be, thank you so much. Yes, happy Friday. But it should be very fun. Now, with Mr. Pecker, as I did before, I do not have a different voice for Mr. Pecker. I just will it'll be questions and answers. We have the government is in blue, of course. The court is in pink. The defense, and they do have some objections, they are in orange. And then Mr. Pecker, as a witness, is in green. So that's my color scheme that I am using here. I will read just a few pages of the proceedings, just a little bit of the proceedings, but then I just really want to dive into the testimony. So hopefully this format will work out so we can make a dent here in our transcripts. Now, for anyone who is wondering again what this is, the page number is here at the top. This is the page number for the transcripts. Oh, thank you so much. And you can follow along that way. These are available again online. And in the middle section, they have what I will be reading. So right here, we have a few housekeeping things that the court addresses here. So it's the proceedings. And then as we go forward, I will be skipping through a lot of those proceedings. But as we go forward, what you'll see is the person answering the questions, that it's a direct examination, and the attorney asking the questions. So every page has a label on it, so you'll be able to tell what it is that I'm reading to you. So I'll go ahead and dive in so we can make a good dent in this. And again, Mr. Pecker's testimony, he was the first witness, is incredibly important. So I will read just a few pages of the proceedings just to let you know where we're at, and then I will fast forward us into his testimony. So again, this is day 7 of the New York case, and we're reading the transcripts starting on page 1098. So here we go. The court. Good morning. Please be seated. Case on trial continued. People versus Donald J. Trump. Appearances, please, starting with the people. Good morning, Your Honor. For the people, ADA Josh Steinglass, Susan Hoffinger, Matthew Kolongeller, and Christopher Conroy, Becky Mangold, and Catherine Ellis. Good morning. Amel Bowe for President Trump, who is seated to my left, and I have with me Todd Blanche, Susan Necklace, and Jadalia Stern. Good morning. Would you like to go over what transpired yesterday? Do we need to do that, Mr. Bove? Just the email exchange that took place yesterday? With respect to the exhibits, Your Honor? Yes. So we received, Your Honor, an email regarding the embedded hearsay issue that we raised during Tuesday's proceedings. And as I understood it, basically agreeing in principle with the defense objection to the concept that a record that is authenticated at the first level for as a business record may still present additional embedded hearsay issues within the record. Following that email at the court's direction, we conferred with the government regarding our pending objections, many of which we had sent on Monday night coming into those proceedings. And we clarified some of them based on your Honor's guidance. We received some feedback from the government, and then I think the conferral process was helpful. There still seem to be some objections that we have on the secondary level of hearsay, and I'm prepared to walk through those whenever we have time, given the jury. Are we able to start proceedings today with the jury and going through them? Perhaps we can break at some point and deal with this. I think so, Judge. So that, again, is just the opening proceedings for day 7. I will go ahead and fast forward everyone through more of the proceedings. We can talk about this during a different live, but I do want to actually get into the full transcript here. So again, I'll fast forward through this, everyone. They're talking again at this point on day 7, which was Thursday, of some contempt issues going on. So fast forward here and get into the actual testimony. So here we go. The court is introducing the state's attorney, Mr. Steinglass, and we will start our direct examination. Again, in blue, it's the government, and green is the witness answering. Good morning, Mr. Pecker. Good morning. When we left off, we were talking about June 20th, when Mr. Howard was out in California interviewing Miss McDougal. Do you remember that? Yes, I do. After Dylan Howard concluded his interview with Karen McDougal, did you and he speak? Yes, we did. And what did he tell you? He described to me who Karen McDougal was. He repeated again that she was a Playboy model. She claimed that she had a year-long relationship with Donald Trump, this kind of relationship. She claimed he said she was 47 years old, and he said that she was a 12 out of 10. And then he said he believed the story could be true or was true, but she had no corroborating evidence. He said to me that she didn't have anything on her BlackBerry. She didn't have any photos. She didn't have any expense reports that she claimed that she went to Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower. But he believed the story was true. He went on to say that he offered her and her representative $10,000 to buy the story, and it was refused. Did you ever have a 3-way call that day with Dylan Howard and Michael Cohen? Yes, I did. How did that come about? Michael Cohen was constantly calling me while Dylan Howard was in this meeting interviewing Karen McDougal. And I told Michael that as soon as I hear from Dylan, I will set up a 3-way call. And did that 3-way call actually happen? Yes, it did. Michael Cohen told me to make sure I used Signal. So I set up the Signal call between myself, Michael Cohen, and Dylan Howard. And tell us about that conversation, please. Dylan described exactly what I just mentioned about who Karen McDougal was and all the details that I just stated. And immediately Michael Cohen said it's not true, which is something that he always says. And then he said, let me check it out and I will come back to you. Was there any discussion on that 3-way call about acquiring the rights to Karen McDougal's story? Yes, Michael said that, let me just clarify. When Dylan suggested that he offered $10,000 to buy Karen's story, which is including the entire story, what she was claiming, and she refused, Michael suggested that we should go ahead and try to buy the story. And did he say why he wanted you to try to buy the story? Well, first he said the story wasn't true. Then he said he thought that having that story out, and I should add on, Dylan mentioned that ABC was interested in acquiring the story. He also mentioned that a Mexican group made an offer for the story for $8 million. Michael and I both said that although we didn't believe that there was a Mexican group that was going to buy the story, the ABC offer was interesting because they were offering apparently Karen a slot on Dancing with the Stars. But I knew from experience that ABC doesn't buy stories, so I didn't think they were paying cash for the story. Dylan, also mentioned that Karen McDougal said that she didn't want her story to be published. She said she didn't want to be the next Monica Lewinsky. She said she wanted to restart her career. She said that, this is Dylan, Dylan said that she was apparently originally a fitness model. And she was the first female model on one of the covers of one of my magazines for one of the American media magazines, which was Men's Fitness. This was on a cover in 1999. So he felt she would be more interested in coming in having American media buying the story than anyone else. And when you say he in that sentence, I'm sorry, I meant Michael Cohen. Excuse me, I meant Dylan Howard. Thank you. And to the extent that it's possible, if you could remember, it's better to use names than pronouns so we don't have to run into that issue. Okay, I'll do better. I'll do that. If you can remember, how did your withdrawn? What was your initial thought after the three-way call about how to handle the Karen McDougal situation? I thought we would have to buy that story. I believed exactly what Dylan said. He knows this marketplace. He's the chief content officer of the company. Karen McDougal's attorney was Keith Davidson, and Keith Davidson was the one of the major sources for Dylan Howard. So I felt that this story should be purchased. Now, I think you started to allude to at the end of the day on Tuesday a conversation that you had with Donald Trump himself about this. Do you remember that? Yes. So my first question is, do you remember when the conversation with Donald Trump happened? It was the third week of June of 2016. So sometime was it after Dylan Howard had gone out to interview Karen McDougal on June 20th? Yes. And after the three-way call that you had with Michael Cohen and Dylan Howard? Yes, that's correct. Where were you when you got this call from Donald Trump? I was at one of my largest investors meetings in New Jersey. And how did the call come in? Oh, I was making a presentation and an update on our business, and the assistant in the office came into the conference room and said, "There's a call for you from Donald Trump," and I left and took the call. And could you tell us about the conversation you had that day with Mr. Trump? Yes, well, I got to the phone. Mr. Trump said to me, "I spoke to Michael. Karen's a nice girl. Is it true that a Mexican group is looking to buy her story for $8 million? I said, I absolutely don't believe that there is a Mexican group out there to buy a story for $8 million. And then he said, "What do you think I should do?" I said, "I think you should buy the story and take it off the market." So when the subject of Karen McDougal came up, Donald Trump described her as a nice girl? Yes. Based on your conversation with Mr. Trump, did you have an understanding as to whether he was aware of the specifics of Karen McDougal's description of the affair? Yes, I did. What made you come to such an understanding? I think that Michael Cohen spoke to Donald Trump, which he said he was going to, Donald Trump said on the phone that I spoke to Michael. And I believe that when Mr. Trump said that to me over the phone, that she was a nice girl, I believe that he knew who she was. Why would you recommend to Donald Trump purchasing the story? I believe the story was true. I think that it would have been very embarrassing to himself and also his campaign. After your conversation with Donald Trump, did you have another conversation with Michael Cohen? Yes, on the conversation with Donald Trump, he said to me clearly that he doesn't buy stories because it always gets out. And he said to me that Michael Cohen would be calling me, and he was going to speak to Michael, and he was going to be calling me back. Now, you used a pronoun there. I'm sorry. That's okay. I'm sorry about that. When you said he in the last answer, were you referring to Donald Trump? Yes, I was. I'm sorry. It's okay. So, did there come a time when Michael Cohen followed up with you? Yes, he called me that day or the next day. Tell us about that conversation. He called me and he said you should go ahead and buy this story. So I said to him, I'm going to have Dylan Howard negotiate the terms. And then I said, who's going to pay for it? And he said to me, don't worry, I'm your friend. The boss will take care of it. Sorry, everyone, I need a tea break for a moment. Who did you understand the boss to be in reference to? Donald Trump. When Michael Cohen said the boss will take care of it, what did you understand that to mean? That I would be either reimbursed by the Trump organization or by Donald Trump. Now, did Mr. Cohen say anything to you on that follow-up call, one way or the other, that led you to believe that he was aware of your conversation that you had with Donald Trump when you were with your investor in New Jersey? Yes, he told me he was sitting in Donald Trump's office when he called me. I don't know if he was on the speakerphone or not, but he said that he was there and he heard. Did he tell you one way or the other whether he was able to overhear your conversation with Donald Trump? Yes, he did. What did he say about that? He said, I heard what you said to the boss, and I want you to go forward and negotiate this. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I want you to go forward with this and negotiate the purchase of the story. And did he... Sorry, everyone, my colors are swapped here for a moment. And did he give you Donald Trump's view on that question of whether to go forward to buy the story? He just said to go forward to buy the story. Did the topic of the $30,000 that you had already laid out on the Dino Sujadin story come up during that conversation with Michael Cohen? At the conversation, we didn't have what the purchase price was going to be for the Karen McDougal story as of yet. Okay, if I can add, sure. From that conversation, I was authorized basically to go forward and have Dylan Howard negotiate the price and negotiate the terms. And did you, in fact, ask Dylan to go forward and negotiate the terms? I did. Now, you told us that Michael Cohen told you that the boss would take care of it and would pay you back. How did you feel about Michael Cohen's representation that Mr. Trump would reimburse you? Over the years that I know that I've worked with Michael Cohen, I know he didn't have any authorization to spend or distribute any funds from the Trump organization. Every time that we even went out for lunch, I always paid. He never paid. So I didn't think that he had any authorization to buy or acquire or spend any monies. Without Mr. Trump's approval? Without Mr. Trump's approval, I'm sorry. During the time withdrawn, you told us that you gave Dylan Howard the authority to go ahead and negotiate the deal with Karen McDougal. Is that right? That's correct. Was Dylan Howard giving you periodic updates during those negotiations? Yes, he did. And did there come a time when you discussed with Dylan Howard some of the terms of the potential deal? Yes. What were some of the terms? Dylan Howard gave me the following terms. To purchase the lifetime rights from Karen McDougal was going to cost $150,000. Plus, Karen wanted to restart her career. She wanted to write for the celebrity magazines. She wanted to be on the cover of some of the health and fitness titles. She had a major problem when her implants were removed, and she wanted to write some articles about that in Shape and in some of the other magazines. And she also wanted to launch a clothing line, a fitness clothing line, as well as beauty product company, beauty products. And she wanted to, she wanted to make she wanted to be an anchor for the red carpet events with a Radar magazine. Did you update Michael Cohen on the negotiations? Yes, I did. How often did you speak with Michael Cohen during the period when Dylan Howard was negotiating this deal with Karen McDougal? We spoke very frequently, probably daily. How would you describe his tone? Michael was very agitated. Why is this taking so long? Why didn't we acquire? Why didn't we buy the story yet? Why didn't we finish the agreement? So he was pretty agitated. Did you discuss with Michael Cohen the manner of who would be paying Karen McDougal? Yes, now that we had the price, that was $150,000, I said, who's going to pay for this? So he said, you should pay. I said, Michael, why would I pay? I just paid $30,000 for the doorman story. I said, now you're asking me to pay $150,000 for the Karen story, plus all of these other additional items that she wants to do. I don't have a problem in doing everything else that she requested about writing for the magazine to be on the cover of the books or the fitness titles. That's not an issue. That I don't have a problem with. The $150,000, who's going to reimburse me for this? So he said again, don't worry about it. I'm your friend. The boss will take care of it. Apologize, everyone. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but when Michael Cohen told you, don't worry, the boss will take care of it, what did you understand that to mean? The boss would have to be Donald Trump. And take care of it means what? That either that I would be reimbursed either from the Trump organization or from Donald Trump. Okay. I'm now going to display for everyone what's in evidence as People's Exhibit 173A. You can start on page 1. Is this a series of texts between you and Dylan Howard from 2016 regarding Karen McDougal? Yes, it is. And I should just clarify, are portions of the phone numbers and email addresses redacted in this exhibit to protect personal information of the parties to this text change? No response. Did you understand my question? Can you repeat it? I'm sorry. Yeah, of course. My question was, are portions of the phone numbers and email addresses redacted on this exhibit to protect personal information of the parties to this text change? Yes, that's correct. Okay, so I want you to zoom in on the last column of the line marked document blah, blah, blah to 241. Let me first ask you, is this the last column basically a summary of the date, the time in the text, who it's from, and who it's to, as well as the body of the text itself? Yes, it is. If you look at what does the date time marked say on the top of this text? 2016, 7/23. Now, do you understand that to mean July 23rd of 2016 at 7:21 p.m.? Yes. Do you know what UTC time is? UTC time is 4 to 5 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time, depending on what season it is. Okay, so UTC time is 4 or 5 hours ahead of New York times. New York, depending on whether it's daylight savings times or not? Yes, got it. In January of 2016, was the East Coast, if you know, observing... Okay, I'm going to skip through this part or I may fall off my stool, everybody. We're talking about Eastern Standard Time, and if it's summer, and if it's daylight savings times. We're talking again about New York here. So we're going to skip into when he starts talking about the text. It's from Dylan Howard. Okay, who's it to? It's to me. Okay, and can you read us the substance of the text, please? Spoke to Michael Cohen about that other issue, obviously concerned that it is proceeding with filming dates, etc., and wants me to handle. I'm on it. What did you understand Dylan Howard to be referring to when he said that other issue? I don't recollect. Can you clarify that? Well, I can't testify. No. But why don't we move on and see if the context will help you understand this question, okay? And just while we're here, we have this displayed. What was your response to Dylan Howard on July 23rd? I said, good move, and follow up. And as you sit here, Mr. Pecker, do you recall whether a contract was signed at some point with Karen McDougal? Yes, it would have been signed the first week of August of 2016. Okay, so did you have any concerns about the legality of AMI paying to kill a story regarding a political candidate? Yes, I did. Why did you have those concerns? Between 2002 and 2003, I had an issue when I acquired a story from Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was running for governor of California. Can you explain a little bit more about that to the jury, please? Yes, in 2002, the Weider magazine, which was Shape, Muscle and Fitness, Flex Health and Fitness titles, were up for sale. Joe Weider was the founder. He founded all of those magazines. He also discovered Arnold Schwarzenegger and those guys. I should say that Joe Weider and Arnold Schwarzenegger had a relationship for 50 years. So when the magazines were being sold and I went to see Joe Weider right before the sale, he said to me, before we finalize this transaction, you have to meet with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he gave me his phone number. I called up Schwarzenegger. I went to see him and he had the following conversation with me. He said that, I have been on the cover of Muscle, Fitness, and Flex, two of the primary magazines you're buying 70 to 80 times. He said, I want to be an editor at large for both magazines. And I want an agreement. And he said, you bought the tabloids. he was referring to primarily the Globe and the National Enquirer. And he said, and as I mentioned, I think on Monday, we acquired them in March of 1999. He said that I've had a number of litigation and lawsuits against both magazines because you always run negative stories about me. And he said, I plan on running for governor, and I would like for you to not publish any negative stories on me now. I should say any negative stories about me now or in the future, and I will continue on being the editor for Muscle Fitness and Flex as a spokesperson. So I agreed. And shortly after, he announced on the Jay Leno show that he was running for governor. And after he made that announcement, a number of women called up the National Enquirer about stories that they have, I should say, to sell on different relationships or contacts and harassment that they felt that Arnold Schwarzenegger did. And the deal that I had, the agreement, I should say, that I had with Arnold is that I would call him and advise him of any stories that were out there. And I ended up buying them for a period of time. Oh my gosh, everybody, Arnold Schwarzenegger is always coming back. And then he became governor. And one of the stories that I acquired, I wasn't going to publish. And the person who took that story, and since we didn't publish it, she brought it to the Los Angeles Times, and the LA Times published the stories. It was very embarrassing. Most of the press approached Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was governor about the story. And his comment was, I didn't know. He said, ask my friend David Pecker. So it was very embarrassing to me and the company. And at the time, there was an investigation by the state with respect to Arnold being the editor at large for those two titles. He had to resign, and it was a difficult situation. And it gave me a sensitivity about buying any stories in the future. So that's how I became sensitive on this topic. So let me just ask you one more question about the end of what you were just saying. Did, as a result of your agreement to purchase stories, negative stories about Arnold Schwarzenegger on behalf of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was running for governor of California, did you come to appreciate the legalities surrounding such an arrangement with a political candidate? Yes, that was the first time I ever came across a political violation, a political contribution, what a violation was. And what, if any, Judge, I object to the word violation and move to strike. Sustained. What did you, in your mind, take away from the experience that you had as a result of Arnold Schwarzenegger's situation? Based on what happened 14 years ago, I wanted to be comfortable that the agreement that we were going to prepare for Karen McDougal met all the obligations with respect to campaign contributions. Now, you told us that there was withdrawn. Did there come a time, and I don't want to get into what you discussed with any attorney, yep, but did there come a time that someone at AMI consulted with an election law attorney? Yes. And did there come a time that you finalized a deal with Karen McDougal? Yes. Did you tell Michael Cohen that you had finalized a deal with Karen McDougal? Yes. I called Michael Cohen. I told him that we finalized an agreement with Karen McDougal, that the contract was bulletproof, and that we consulted with a campaign attorney. And to your knowledge, what did the campaign attorney review? The agreement and the contract? The contract. And was that all the campaign attorney reviewed as far as you know? As far as I know, yes. And do you recall how much time was billed for that review? The dollars were, I don't remember the exact dollars, but they were small amounts of money. Directing your attention to People's Exhibit 156, which is in evidence, I'm going to ask you if you recognize this document. Yes, what is it? This is the Karen McDougal contract. This is in evidence, so we can display it for everyone. Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, I said this was the Karen McDougal's agreement. What was the effective date of the agreement? August 5th of 2016. And I'm going to ask that paragraphs 1 and 2 be blown up. I'm not going to ask you to read this entire thing, but can you just give me some of the highlights of what the deal was that was involved? Yes, it was a 2-year agreement, and McDougal was going to get a monthly column on aging and fitness for Star Magazine, a monthly column on aging and fitness in OK Magazine, She was going to post on aging and fitness on Radar. AMI was going to hire ghostwriters. A ghostwriter is someone who would write the article for them, and then Karen McDougal would approve it, and which was an important point. And that at any time Karen's photo was used in a digital site or in the magazine, she would have approval of her image. Okay, so now I'm going to blow up paragraph 3. I will just ask you to read it to yourself, and I will highlight a little portion of it in the middle. Yes, you don't have to read the whole thing to the jury. It's in evidence, okay? But I just want to ask you, I'm directing your attention to the highlighted portion. I see it. What did you understand this paragraph to mean, and what did you understand specifically the highlighted portion to be referring to? This paragraph and highlights here are specifically, it's referencing that we were acquiring her rights for her story on the relationship that she had with any married man. And who did you understand the any then married man to be referring to? That she was referring to Donald Trump. So what does it mean to acquire someone's limited life rights? Can you explain that to the jury? Yes, it means that you buy the rights for this specific story, and it cannot be published by any other publishing company. You cannot discuss it with any other media, and that it was exclusively owned by American media. So would you describe this paragraph as the true purpose of this agreement? Yes. So why include that other stuff about the articles that she was going to have a ghostwriter for and the covers that she was going to appear in front of? Why include that stuff? I wanted to substantiate the $150,000 payment. What do you mean substantiate? With respect to campaign laws, I wanted to have the contract be a record that stipulates that for the services that she was going to perform for American media has a basis for it, for the $150,000. So when you talked about it, the previous paragraph, all of the articles that she was going to run, the photographs that she was going to do for the magazine, the posts that she was going to write, I was looking at the amount of money that I would have to acquire or pay for freelancers or other writers or reporters or digital people, and that was to validate to come up with the $150,000. So was it your primary purpose in entering into this deal to buy the life rights? Yes, it was. Were the other provisions about the columns placed there to disguise the true nature of this contract? Yes, it was. So I want to show you paragraph 4. This one's short. Maybe you could just read it. Yes. Quote. Hold on. Pausing for a tea break, everyone. In connection with all of the rights granted herein to AMI by McDougal, AMI shall pay McDougal the sum of $150,000, payable within 2 business days following the execution of this agreement. So this was the price? Yes. Okay, I want to display page 2, paragraph 6. Can you read this to the jury and tell us what it means, please? All decisions whatsoever, whether of a creative or business nature regarding any of the rights granted by McDougal to AMI herein, or any rights derived or ancillary thereto, shall be made by AMI in its sole discretion. Can you explain to us what that means? That means that AMI would make the decision whether we would publish anything, any story on Karen McDougal. So by purchasing her life rights, you were not obligated to actually print them? No. Did you have any intention of printing them? No, we did not. Paragraph 7. Can you read the paragraph to yourself and tell us what it means? All right. This paragraph clearly states that American media has sole rights for McDougal's story, and that she's not allowed under any circumstances to write her own book, post anything on any digital site, and not to give any interviews. So we wanted, as American media, we wanted to control anything that had to do with this, with respect to the $150,000 that we are paying for a story. And if it's breached, she would have to pay the money back. Whereupon the senior court reporter is replaced by the next court reporter. So this paragraph basically meant that Karen McDougal was not allowed to take her story anywhere else. That's correct. And if she did, she'd have to return the entire $150,000. That's right. even though she was still doing the columns and magazine covers? Yes. Okay, I'm going to turn to page 3 and just ask you, can we blow up the very bottom? Did Karen McDougal sign this agreement? Yes. And who, if anyone, signed the agreement on behalf of AMI? Dylan Howard. Do you recognize his signature? The signature, he also put down Chief Content Officer. And at the time, August 5th, August 6th of 2016, Dylan Howard was the Chief Content Officer of AMI? Yes, he had authorization to sign this agreement. To your knowledge, who was aware of this agreement in AMI? Objection. If you know, it would be, other than myself, it would be obviously Dylan Howard and Cameron Stretcher, General Counsel. And who was aware of this agreement on the Trump side, to your knowledge? Objection. Again, if you know, you can answer. Michael Cohen. What about Mr. Trump himself? Objection to leading. Sustained. If you know, do you know whether anyone else besides Michael Cohen had knowledge of this contract? Objection. Asked and once answered. Overruled. You can answer. Okay, can you repeat that question again? Probably not. Can you read it back, maybe, please? The testimony as requested was read by the reporter. Yes, I think Donald Trump did. During your time as CEO of AMI, were you familiar with AMI's accounting practices? Yes, I was. Including the general ledger? Yes. Very briefly, can you tell the jury what it is, a general ledger? All of the financial disbursements, the receivables, all of the monies that are transacted because the company is recording the entries into a general ledger or revenues or expenses. As part of the accounting process, did AMI retain copies of the invoices sent to AMI for payment? Yes, there were. I'm showing you People's 158 in evidence, and I'm going to ask you if you recognize this. It's in evidence so we can display it to everyone. Yes. What is it? This is an invoice from Keith Davidson and Associates, which is Karen McDougal's attorney, for the purchase of a lifetime rights for $150,000. So I am just going to ask to blow it up. Thank you. And I will ask you, who is the payer or subsidiary on this invoice? It's AMI, American Media. And that means you are the one being billed? Yes, the invoice is coming to American Media. And who is the vendor? And what does the vendor mean? A vendor is the accounts payable for services for the contracts that we purchased. And Keith Davidson is Karen McDougal's attorney. So in layman's terms, this is a bill from Keith Davidson to AMI. It's a bill from Keith Davidson to AMI for Karen's lifetime rights, and we sent a wire transfer, $150,000, to his escrow account. We will get to that in 1 minute. What's the invoice date? 8/9/2016, which is 2 days, 4 days from the date they signed, that we had the signed agreement. With the effective date? Yes, with the effective date. What's the invoice amount? $150,000. Okay, I'm going to move down this exhibit a little bit and just ask you, what is the account? The account is where it would be coded in the general ledger. This would be coded in the general administration, and it says outside services. And the outside services, we take it one more. This is the president's department. So is it fair to say that this line we have blown up has the account information, etc., that AMI's internal record keeping of how they are kind of recording this expense in their own books? That's correct. Why was this amount coded to the president's department? From a budgetary standpoint, the editor's budget is very limited. As I previously mentioned the other day, they can spend no more than $10,000 on their own. This is a very, very large purchase. And from the budgetary standpoint, I budget in the president's account an overall number budget that during the year, if there are great photos to buy, something unusual, unique, the president's budget has the expense for it. And incidentally, is this the same way you accounted for payment to Dino Sejidin? Yes, it was. So getting back to this, did AMI if in fact pay the $150,000 for Karen McDougal's lifetime rights? Yes, we did. I believe you said you accomplished that by wire transfer. Yes. Okay, I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 159 in evidence. Briefly for the jury, what is this? This is a general ledger detail for this transaction. And when you say the general ledger detail, you're talking about AMI's general ledger detail? Yes, American Media's general ledger detail of this transaction. I will just ask to blow it up a little bit. It's still very small. Does it contain a department that this is being billed to? Yes, it says President's Department. And does it also contain the vendor's name? Yes, it does. And so you record Keith Davidson into the general ledger books at AMI? Yes. It includes the amount of the payment? Yes. And the date of the payment? That's correct. And what was the date of the payment? The date of the payment is... Would you need to look at another document to determine that? Oh, I'm sorry. Date of the payment was, I was just checking. It was August 9th. Do you know if that's the date of the invoice or the date of the payment, or are you not sure? That I'm not sure. Okay, let's just take a look at Exhibit 160 also into evidence. I'm going to ask you first, do you recognize this? Yes, this is a payment voucher. Briefly for the jury, what's a payment voucher? A payment voucher is when all of the documents for a payment are approved. The invoice, the contracts are prepared, the contract was approved. The invoice from Keith Davidson was approved for over $150,000. The next step would be to create a payment voucher so that you can actually wire a check. Okay, who's the payee listed here? Keith Davidson and Associates. And again, what's the amount billed? $150,000. Date of the bill? August 9th. The date of the payment? The date of the payment would have been August 10th. That's 2016? 2016. Turning your attention to page 2 of the same document, do you know what this is? Yes. What is it? Yes, it's to actually disperse a check. You create a payment voucher, payment request, and then the payment request here is $450,000 to Keith Davidson and Associates, and it was approved by Chris Pulameni, who is the Chief Financial Officer of American Media. Just to clarify for the records, did you say that it was $450,000 or $150,000? It was $150,000. It was $150,000. It's $150,000. Thank you. Now I'm going to walk you through every entry on this page. Does it contain the statement account code and the same department code as a general ledger? Yes, it does. And finally, does this appear to be a sticker at the top of that says high priority? Yes. Do you know who placed the sticker up there? Normally it would be Liz Rutolo. It's Chris Polemi's assistant and also accounts payables clerk. Okay, you can take that down. Thank you. Did you ever have any intention of printing Karen McDougal's story about her affair with Mr. Trump? No, we never did. No, we did not. Was your principal purpose in entering into the agreement with Karen McDougal to suppress her story as to prevent it from influencing the election? Yes, it was. As of 2016, were you aware that corporations, including AMI, are subject to federal campaign finance laws? Yes, I was. Were you aware that expenditures by corporations made for the purpose of influencing an election made in coordination with or at the request of a candidate are unlawful? Objection. Grounds. May I be heard? Sure. Discussion is held at sidebar on record. My objection is right now there's a ruling in place that limits the extent to which we can put an expert testimony to explain these concepts. So I think these questions, if they're permitted, are opening the door to a lot more explanation. I think we are on the precipice of that right now. Judge, first of all, the law is the law. That's the basis of our motion in limine. I don't think that we're opening the door to any kind of expert testimony on the law. But anyway, the more important thing here is that this witness's understanding of whether his own conduct violated the law is highly relevant. I don't think it opens a door. I agree. He's not asked to provide the law. He's asked of his awareness of the law. I think he was asked, were you aware that there was a law that did the following? And we disagree that the law did the following. Did you think what you were doing was illegal? I'm going to allow it. We dispute that that's the law, Your Honor. Discussion at the sidebar is concluded, and the following occurred open in court. Objection overruled. Do you remember the question? I would have to ask you to repeat it again. Were you aware that expenditures by corporations made for the purpose of influencing an election, made in coordination with or at the request of a candidate or campaign, are unlawful? Yes. Did either you or AMI ever report to the Federal Election Commission in 2016 that AMI had made a $150,000 payment to Karen McDougal? No, we did not. Why did AMI make this purchase of Karen McDougal's story? We purchased the story so it wouldn't be published by any other organization. And why did you not want it to be published by any other organization? We didn't want the story to embarrass Mr. Trump or embarrass or hurt the campaign. Why you say we? Who is we? Myself or Michael Cohen. But for Michael Cohen's promise to reimburse AMI, withdrawn. But for Michael Cohen's promise that Mr. Trump would reimburse AMI, would you have entered into this agreement? No. Now, did you have any discussions with anyone in the Trump camp about Donald Trump reimbursing AMI for the money paid to Karen McDougal? I had conversations with Michael Cohen. Did those conversations continue after AMI actually laid out the money? Yes. How? Tell us about some of those conversations. After we signed the contract and after American Media made the disbursement, which we just saw on August 10th, I asked Michael Cohen on a number of occasions how the company would be reimbursed. The issue that the company has is that September 30th is the end of the quarter, and we always reflect the proper true-ups of all of the various different accounts, and I wanted to make sure that the funds were back and the accounts were properly stated in the quarterly financial statements. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What do you mean true-ups? The records, true-ups, the records. Normally, most companies just only speak about their own. And when a payment or a disbursement is made, it is usually put into an expense account. And then after the payment was made and it was put into the president's account. And then at the end of the quarter here, we were planning that $150,000 would be recovered and the actual expense would be reported as editorial expenses or other services depending on this, but here the money was recovered. The expense would not be recorded at all in the books other than the articles and the other services that Karen was going to be providing that had billed dollars behind them. So I don't want to, if I could clarify a little bit more. Sure. So what I was saying is where I kept on discussing this with Michael Cohen. I wanted to explain to him why it was so important to be reimbursed. And we had a number of conversations at the end of August and September. And he basically said at the end of each conversation, why are you worried? I'm your friend. The boss will take care of it. Was there ever any discussion? Withdrawn. You said you had a lot of discussions with Michael Cohen in August and September. Was there any conversation about candidate Trump actually acquiring Ms. McDougal's lifetime rights to AMI? From AMI? Yes, in September, Michael Cohen said that Mr. Trump wants to acquire the lifetime rights of the Karen McDougal story, and I should assign the contract over to him. When I said over to Michael Cohen and I would be reimbursed, the company would be reimbursed. And he also added on that Mr. Trump wanted all of the content that the National Enquirer had on our developed and retained that had, let's back up. And he also added that Mr. Trump wanted all of the content that the National Enquirer had or developed and retained on Mr. Trump. I told Michael that, these are old files and the boxes that are in Florida. The company has been moved to New York City and there is nothing in those boxes but old news articles, magazine articles, old files. He insisted that he wanted those boxes and he wanted the content. And Michael Cohen called me constantly in the month of September to review and to send those boxes to his office. Did Michael Cohen say why Mr. Trump wanted those boxes and why he wanted the rights to Karen McDougal's story? Yes, he said that the boss said that if I got hit by a bus or if the company was sold, he did not want for someone else to potentially publish those stories. And now, in terms of selling the rights to Miss McDougal's story to Mr. Trump, did you have one or several conversations with Michael Cohen about that? We had several conversations. Did there come a time when you communicated to Michael Cohen a willingness to sell Mr. Trump the rights to Karen McDougal's story, the lifetime rights? Yes. Tell us about that. I told Michael Cohen that I would sign the rights over. I would sign the rights. And he asked me, it's $150,000. And I said, look, Karen is going to be writing for various magazines and visual sites. She's going to appear on a couple of covers of the magazines. I value that at $25,000. So I will retain $25,000 as editorial expenses, and I will bill you for the lifetime rights for $125,000. So did you value the portion of the contract, the $150,000 you paid to the AMI had paid to Karen McDougal? Did you value that lifetime rights at $125,000? Yes, I did. And was that price that you were willing to sell the lifetime rights to Michael Cohen and on behalf of Donald Trump for? Yes. Did you discuss the timing of the assignment of rights? Michael Cohen wanted the contract done yesterday, and this was going towards the end of September. So I facilitated to have the agreement, the assignment of the rights sent over to him. I told Michael Cohen that we would have it done by the end of September, first week of October of 2016. Did you say this as a way to recoup the money, or at least some of the money that you had laid out on behalf of Mr. Trump to buy this story? Yes, as I said, it was coming towards the end of the quarter. So I wanted to see if I could get the fund refunded before September 30th. Was there an invoice prepared for this reimbursement? Yes. May we approach? Sure. So this is the one that I can probably go another half hour without getting into. So this is the one document that was referenced earlier that may come up in the next half hour. If I get through this document, I can get through the initial half without taking a break if you want. Last night, counsel told us that they did not want this line here, agreed upon a flat fee for advisory services to be offered for the truth. This morning, they said they don't want it to come in at all. We don't even think it's true. It's a bogus invoice, but now it sounds like this morning they want it redacted, which we think is ridiculous. I guess he thinks I'm a worse guy than I am. When I said we didn't think it should come in for the truth, it is that we think it shouldn't come in at all. My point is asking for the redactions is that this is if it's not going to come in for the truth. An assertion like that, which is prejudicial, shouldn't be in front of the jury. A simple way to mitigate the prejudice is to redact it. That's all I meant. The $125,000 for, he just testified $125,000 was for the payment that was being billed to Michael Cohen and to reimburse Mr. Pecker for the money that was laid out for Karen McDougal. It wasn't for this. It absolutely was not for this. This is a false business record. It's not only meant to discuss the true nature of the reimbursement. If I could, I don't think Mr. Pecker is going to say he prepared this. Maybe he will. I think he's going to say Dan Rothstein and consultant outside AMI, not employed by AMI, prepared it. It's not in his statement. He didn't have to prepare it. Does he know this document? Has he seen the document? Yes, Daniel Rothstein worked part-time for AMI, and I think the witness laid the business record foundation. I'm going to allow it. Are you asking for a limiting instruction regarding the document? Judge, we would ask just to make sure that a foundation is laid that Mr. Pecker saw this contemporaneously. Sure, thank you. Discussion at sidebar concluded, and following occurred in open court. Back to direct, everyone. So you told us, I believe, Mr. Pecker, that there was an invoice prepared for this reimbursement. Is that right? Yes, that's correct. I would like to show what is in evidence and is being displayed as People's Exhibit 161. Do you recognize the document? Yes, I do. What is it? This is an invoice from the Investment Advisory Services. This is not an American media company. This is a company owned by a man by the name of Daniel Rothstein. Daniel Rothstein was the head of human resources and the head of administrations for American media for probably close to 20 years. And he resided with the company, and he took up position as an executive he lives in Florida. I think it's in Plantation, and he was working there 4 days a week. Daniel Rothstein was a very valuable employee to me, and I wanted to keep the relationship. So I asked him if he would still continue to work for American Media as a consultant. He did performing these services and administration services. And what another aspect I asked him to do is when I had a large payments to be made on behalf of American Media or something to be received, I requested that Daniel to handle it through the company. And the reason is that if I had anything, if there was a large disbursement within American Media Finance Department, the finance people, would tell the tabloid editors. For example, if we read that a private plane would fly a celebrity to one place, if we hired certain photographers, paparazzi photographers, I didn't want that type of communication to go through the company. So to have them outside was much more beneficial. Part of it was that we had some pretty difficult experiences within the company whereby the payroll register for American Media, the company based in Florida, was hidden upon each post, and the top executive's salary and compensation was listed right on the front page of the paper. So I had a number of incidents over the years. So I asked Daniel Rothstein to handle this for me. So I called him and I said, I don't want to have a check from the Trump organization going through American Media. I don't know exactly how it's going to be reimbursed. So I'd like for you to speak to Michael Cohen directly and work out with him whereby you bill him the invoice for $125,000 and reimburse American Media. So I called Michael Cohen to tell him about it, that Daniel Rothstein would be handling this reimbursement. And I asked Daniel Rothstein to call Michael Cohen directly. I made the introduction. Michael told me that he created a company called Resolution Consultants that we should bill, and Daniel Rothstein prepared the agreement and the assignment of the invoice. I'm going to instruct the jury, Mr. Steinglass? Sure. Jurors, so this document has been accepted into evidence. I direct you to not consider this document for the truth of its contents. It is being accepted into evidence for the fact that this invoice was created, not for the truth of what it says. Thank you, Judge. Let me ask you this. Is it fair to say that you asked Daniel Rothstein to be in the middleman to disguise the fact that money would be flowing from Michael Cohen to AMI? Objection. Sustained. I'm not trying to be offensive. Wait a minute. He sustained the objection himself. Okay. I'm not trying to be offensive. Can you just give us a short answer about why you used Daniel Rothstein in the first place to create this invoice? I used Daniel Rothstein to create the invoice because I did not want to have payments received in the AMI finance department from the Trump organization or Michael Cohen. Why not? Because I believe that the payment would raise a lot of questions and issues and be communicated with the rest of the editors, which is something I didn't want to have happen. Okay, so I'm going to blow up the top of this invoice and I'm going to ask you a few more questions about it. And then he did. All right, everybody, I'm noting on the clock here, it has been 1 hour and I had promised myself to only do 1 hour of reading. What I may do, because we do have so many people joining me here, let me see here. Yes, so all of this is just talking again further about that. Yeah, I will have to cut it off at this point, everyone. I apologize. I see a lot of you are joining me here, but I have done a full hour. So at this point, I will go ahead and turn on Q&A. I can do a Q&A session here for just a little bit to answer any questions that people may have. And we'll continue on from there for just a little bit, though I've got about 30 minutes available. So let me see here. I'm turning on comments. There we go. Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome in. Hello. I do want to make sure I note where we stopped here so we don't forget. Hello everybody. Hello everyone. There may be more today. I may be able to do more today. I've got quite a bit to get through for this. And so I'm hoping to be able to do multiple lives over the next few days and just do them in hour chunks. So I'm definitely going to try to do at least one more live today. And again, I will give about an hour notice before I go live again. It is damaging. I agree. I agree. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Can you summarize? Well, at this point, there's really not too much to summarize. We just went through more of what Mr. Pecker's role was and what he was kind of expected to do, how he felt uncomfortable, that he knew that there might be something wrong with the agreement that they were making here. Did I take on transcript voices in law school? No. No, I did not. But thanks for asking. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, well, good afternoon. Hello. Yes, so yeah, that's about it for the summary. So, Mr. Pecker is just getting into his, next hour. I think we're probably at about hour 2 of him out of 10. So he testified for 10 hours total. We're only just briefly into his testimony at this point. Why is defense questioning the law of campaign? So, good question. And I think it has to do with any kind of, not necessarily campaign knowledge, but it sounded like his objection was more related to the illegality of it. I think any time you can have testimony of a witness, this is my opinion, everyone. If you have testimony of a witness who is saying, I knew it was illegal, then all of a sudden the case for the state becomes stronger because he's acknowledging that there was an illegal act, which is part of what the state's trying to prove, right? So he's saying, yeah, I knew it was illegal, but I did it anyway. So that goes again to the elements the state needs to prove. His admission that he was committing a crime yeah, exactly, Curtis, exactly. So it's basically saying, part of it is saying that what was happening was an illegal act, and Mr. Trump was part of that illegal act, and that's what they need to prove in order to get it to a Class E felony. So it's just another layer of saying we knew something illegal was going on. Yep. Right. So yeah, it's very interesting. But again, we've got 10 hours here of okay, so Christina, that's a great question. So the whole questioning with Mr. Schwarzenegger had to do with the fact that he was the first political candidate to come to Mr. Pecker and be like, hey, can you get rid of the negative stories or not publish negative stories about me? And Mr. Pecker got into some trouble for that. So he was really just kind of like the first time Mr. Pecker was involved in a situation like that. So he wanted to make sure with Mr. Trump that he was careful about the terms, like they called in an election attorney to make sure that the finances were set up properly and so on. So that's really the role he played. He played in that situation. No, I've not seen that yet. I know, Arnold. I know. Oh, absolutely. Crushing his phone. Oh, I know. Can Arnold be prosecuted? Oh, I think the statute of limitations probably run. And I'm not sure exactly what the rules are. I mean, it's a California election law would be in place, but I'm not sure. I mean, of course, it would have federal implications as well, but I would think the statute of limitations would probably have run. Yeah, I would probably have run on that. So, yeah, the witness has no reason not to be cooperative. He's got signed agreements with the feds as well as with New York that he's not going to be prosecuted. So he has no reason to be fearful. He can just go and testify to whatever he needs to testify to. Desert Skies. Oh, yes, of course, you're welcome. Yes, I wish I could stay longer, everyone, but I'm going to be kind of in and out of different things that I have going on. So when I've got a spare hour, I will try to come back again and read the next portion. It's looking like I can get through about 125 pages in an hour. So I will again try to meet that goal when I come back on again. I really can't do much more than an hour worth of reading just to save my voice here. So I will give you a notice. I will post before to give you an hour notice heads up before I come back on again. So I'm going to really try to come back on again today. Again, we'll see how things turn out. So watch for a post, and if I put another post up, I will let you know. I'll give you an hour heads up. So with that, I will go ahead and sign off for now. I do have some some other things I've got to do today, but thank you all for joining me and coming and hanging out. Very interesting situation. I'm really going to try to make it through Mr. Pecker's testimony so we can kind of move on to our other witnesses. But I do have lots of transcripts to keep reading, everyone. So have a great rest of your day. Yes, I do. I need to go rest my voice. Hopefully I will be back on again later, so just keep an eye out for my notifications, everyone. So see you all later. Take care, and thanks again for stopping.